I wanted to go over this Qurnah disaster, which is said to be the most high-profile disasters in the history of archaeology because it seems very relevant to the other topics that I cover on this channel. And it ties into the Knight of the Crown, Sir Henry Rawlinson, father of modern Assyriology that they named him as. And Rawlinson unearthed more than 30 tons of documents, which in this case are stone statues and cuneiform tablets, from the Babylonian era, the Sumerian, Assyrian, Anunnaki, ring lord, overlord type tablets, the same ones that I referenced in my video titled Assyriology. So just to review, Sir Henry Rawlinson, an officer of the British East India Company Army assigned to Iran, and also close associate to Lionel Rothschild, Cecil Rhodes, and Alfred Milner, began studying the Assyrian inscriptions in the mid-1800s, one of which was an autobiography of King Darius the Great, including his ancestry and royal lineage, written in Old Persian, Elamite, Babylonian by Darius the Great between 522 and 486 BC. And once Sir Rawlinson deciphered it, supposedly, he sent the meaning and the genealogy back to the crown. So what does that have to do with the Qurnah disaster? Well, the artifacts he was working on deciphering and studying and uncovering were on that ship or barge wreck. And honestly, it's kind of difficult to understand what they are saying happened because some things I read said they sank and others said they were looted or stolen, etc. So let's take a look at this Qurnah disaster. Qurnah disaster was a May 1855 shipwreck at Al-Qurnah, which is modern Iraq, at the confluence point of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers where it empties into the Persian Gulf. The artifacts on the ship and barge were Assyrian sculptures, cuneiform tablets, etc., dated from 911 to 612 BC in Mesopotamia. It represented one of the most high-profile disasters in the history of archaeology, and the artifacts on board included Babylonian excavations from Dur Sharukin, which were Assyrian artifacts in Iraq from around 700 BC, artifacts from Sir Henry Rawlinson's expedition to Nineveh, which was the largest city in the world for about 50 years until about 612 BC. So Sir Henry Rawlinson's artifacts were on this archaeological sinking or stolen disaster. So what else was in this cargo? Alright. It was a ship and 4 rafts prepared to carry the artifacts. It says, but even this substantial effort was overwhelmed by the sheer number of items to be transported, and the cargo included 2 winged human-headed Lamassu bulls weighing almost 30 tons each, and those are those big bull horse-looking things with human faces, 2 winged genies, which I'm going to talk about winged genies in a little bit, weighing almost 13 tons each, over 150 crates of all dimensions, including basalt and alabaster statues, bas reliefs, and many inscribed objects in orange, bronze, gold, and silver. There was a part of the cargo that survived the disaster, and that part is the part that they don't mind you seeing, I guess, and it's in the Louvre. That's 1 bull, 1 winged genie, and 20 to 28 crates of bas reliefs. So what do they say about the disaster? It says here that the troubles began when the convoy left because the Tigris River were controlled by sheiks who were Ottomans, and there was unrest. And then the convoy reached Al-Qurnah, and it was assaulted by local pirates led by this sheik here. But you can't find anything about him. But he was the head pirate of the most, profound archaeological loss of tons and tons and 500 thousands of tons of artifacts, but we don't know who he is. Can't really click on his name. But his actions supposedly sank the main cargo ship and forced the 4 rafts aground. So the entire shipment was almost completely lost, with only 28 of the 200 crates making it to the Louvre. And as far as recovery efforts, there's hardly anything written about that. Like, oh, yeah, no, couldn't find them. But let's talk about these winged genies, because these winged genies are interesting to me. I never knew they were called winged genies, but they are. And they look like, to me, look like those ring lords, Nephilim, Raphaim, overlords, opiaires that people talk about in their religion. Look just like that. It says a winged genie is a conventional term for a recurring motif in the iconography of the Assyrian sculptors. They're bearded male figures with birds' wings, and they're in ancient Assyrian art, and they're displayed most prominently in places of royalty, of course. They're antediluvian sages, or Abkalu, and they existed during a godlike generation of humanity. Didn't know humanity was godlike. That's what this says. They were closely associated with Enki. Then humanity was covered, or more commonly referred to as the Great Flood, and the inhabitants were purified and roamed the earth as invisible genii. So they're Nephilim. Other references describe the Abkalu as purified humans that were sent to Apsu, the underground Sweetwater realm of Enki, by Marduk. So they had different symbols. They carried a little creature around. I don't know if I have a picture of that. They carried that pine cone in that little bag, which it's kind of, people are guessing at what that represents, but it says a lot about the tree of life and, warding and protecting people from, demons, it says. But yeah, so they were genies, but then some of them are kings, though. Some of them are supposed to be kings, and some are supposed to be these genies, but it's hard to tell which is which, because they conflate kings with divine right to rule. They're god kings. So that really kind of ties in with everything we've been talking about on this channel. So how convenient that hundreds or thousands, maybe, of tons of artifacts just disappeared by way of circumstance, either by shipwreck or pirates that are unidentified, or looting, or sinking in a shallow gulf, Persian Gulf, that can't be found. And only the British knight who happened to climb around and read them prior to most of them disappearing can interpret the true lineage of King Darius based on what he saw. And he claims that it's Scythian in origin. And then he gets named as the father of Assyriology by the crown. So he gets credibility of what those things say by way of getting, named father of Assyriology, a war general for the British East India Company. Thanks for listening.